Just a minute, Rashna. I will just paste the link of the live stream into group. Then we will start with the today's lecture. Right now you are seeing the PowerPoint only, na? Presentation ही दिख रहा है ना आपको? Yes, yes or no? Let me know in the chat box, okay, so that I can proceed. Okay, so let's continue with our next part of the lecture. See, mutation part 3. See, this mutation is a kind of concept which will having a kind of vague kinds of answers and major kind of points of this syllabus. Right? So mutation, even though UPSC have mentioned only one word, that is mutation, but under that there can be different type of questions which can be asked by the UPSC. Okay, so that's why we are taking this in detail. Which are the other points are there of the syllabus? Like this is the operon is there, lac operon is there. Okay, they are having just only their structure and their explanation of their different structures. Okay, the RFLPs, okay, restriction fibril length polymerase. Okay, all these whatever the remaining parts are there, they are kind of an application based and smaller kind of things are there. Okay, only this is the one of the this part in the syllabus which will going to take some of our time. Okay, यही एक ऐसा part है जो हमारे थोड़ा time लेने वाला है, ठीक है. So although we have completed most of the part in today's lecture, in tomorrow's lecture this mutation and the rest of the part of the other ये जो mutagenesis का था वो भी complete हो जाए, ठीक है. But now we will be having a kind of a thorough and a complete concise notes on this. Okay, it is complete also and concise also. Why complete? Because almost most of the points will be there. Okay, by tomorrow आपके पास ऐसा एक भी question नहीं होगा that you won't be answering from this notes. Okay, of that mutation. Okay. And why it is concise? Because I have just taken it from those I have told you yesterday only the references of these lectures on the mutation. Okay, so from those reference books only I'm taking the content, I'm making it concise, and I'm arranging them in a kind of a simplified way so that you can write it in your exam. This is the most difficult task, now that no one gets the time to collect these points in all of these books. Okay, no one can collect all of these points from more than this. See, at the end जब ये course खत्म होगा, at that time I will enlist all the books which I have referred. Okay, even with the soft copy, hard copy. Okay, I guarantee you that it will be more than 50 books. Okay. So 50 books तो ऐसा नहीं है, that does not mean कि 50 books मैंने पूरा पढ़ा है, ठीक है. There will be some part of all of those books. Okay, all of those more than 50 books which will be useful for us. Okay, but as for the UPSC candidates, it is not humanly possible to search all of these books. Okay. Although you may have, you may require kind of 2 or 3 pages out of those 200 or 500 or 600 page book. उसमें से 2 or 3 पेज ही आपको चाहिए होगा. But you will not get that much time because you have other tasks also. Okay. But that is what we were doing. Okay. But वही हम कर रहे हैं यहाँ पर, ठीक है. So let's continue with this part. Okay. So we were about to see these detailed notes on the spontaneous mutation and the induced mutation. Okay. So spontaneous mutations के reason, what are the causes are there? Okay, that will comprise of these the under the spontaneous mutation. Okay, see, define the mutation, we have already defined it. Right. Next will be the types. Okay, the yesterday's lectures was written on these types. Okay, so now you have kind of sufficient or thorough notes on that types. Okay, आपके पास types के ऊपर अच्छा notes है अभी, ठीक है. Although you will have to cut short that notes also. Okay, but that is what I have said now. I wanted to make a note on every point, okay, that you will not be required to see any other book. ऐसा हमें notes बना था, okay, a kind of a one-stop solution. Okay, for many points it will be more than sufficient. Okay, और in few points कभी-कभी मेरा भी point कुछ अच्छा नहीं बनेगा, ठीक है, out of 100, ठीक है, but for most of the points it will be what you will have more than sufficient for answers, right? If I am giving you the content of 4 pages, then only you will be able to write in the UPSC 2 pages out of these 4 pages, because no one is going to retain everything that I am going to teach. Okay, मैं जो आपको सब कुछ पढ़ाने वाला हूँ वो सब के सब पढ़ा याद रखना किसी के लिए पॉसिबल नहीं होगा, right? So you will retain some people retain 50%, some people retain 60%, 80%, right? Out of what I have taught you, right? So the content should be sufficient enough also, right? So that is what the case. Yesterday we have seen the types in detail. Okay, today we are going to see the causes of these mutation. That is the now that's mutation. Maybe there are 2 types. Okay, only one's word is given in the UPSC syllabus. Okay, just imagine if I have not made this previous year collection for you. अगर मैं आपके लिए प्रीवाई, this is my first book in the last year. May or June में ये पहला book ही बनाया था. The previous year collection of all the 43 years of questions, right? If I have not made this for you or for our syllabus or for UPSC zoology, then I would have just taught you mutation in 1 or 2 pages only. सिर्फ मैं 1-2 pages में mutation आपको पढ़ा देता, and I would have just go ahead. Okay, मैं आगे चला जाता. Okay, so मुझे तो I would have felt that yes, I have completed the syllabus. I have taken 2 pages notes on the mutation. Okay, but unless and until we refer all of these questions, okay, तब तक हमें ये नहीं पता चलता. We would not have understood that mutations is actually a single word, but there are multiple type of sub points are there which will come under that mutation, which we will have to study. And which are those sub points? These are the sub points which are enlisted in all of these previous year questions. Okay. So now our task has become what? Has become kind of an easy. हमारा task जो है easy बन गया, ठीक है. Now let's start with the mutations, spontaneous mutations, detail. Okay, now we will study the causes of the spontaneous mutation. इसके क्या-क्या causes है. Okay, then we will study these causes of the induced mutation. Okay, at the last. So the first cause of the spontaneous mutation. Okay, first cause क्या है? DNA replication errors. Okay, so although we have studied that the spontaneous mutation in short, okay, for a shorter version of answers we have studied earlier this spontaneous and this induced, but right now we are studying the spontaneous mutation in respect that even if the UPSC is asking this spontaneous mutation only for 10 marks, then also you should be able to write. Okay, so let's see what it is. The one of first cause behind this spontaneous mutation is the DNA replication errors. Okay, so what are these DNA replication errors? Okay. See, we are studying the spontaneous mutation. We are looking at the causes of the spontaneous mutation. We are searching for why the spontaneous mutation might have occurred. Okay. See, ये जो might, was, has been, was, were, इसमें मेरा कुछ mistakes होगा because I am not from the convent, but many times grammatical mistakes होंगी. Okay. See, most of the students or many of the students who doesn't understand these grammatical mistakes, they will likely to ignore it, right? But those who are from this convent, now they just get many times this irritated. Okay, because many of my friends are also like that also. Okay, they always try to correct the grammatical errors, right, in speaking. But मैं उनको यही बोलता था. I used to say that I am not an English grammatician. I am just an zoologist. Okay, so हमारे इसमें am is was were का there is no significance of am is are was were in our zoology. Okay, we just need to convey our point. Right, that is what is important. So the first one is the DNA replication error. So we are looking at the first reason because of which these spontaneous mutation might have occurred. ये जो spontaneous mutations है वो क्यों हुए हैं उसका पहला रीजन है डीएनए रिप्लिकेशन. सो द एरर्स, जो कुछ भी एरर्स है, whatever the errors are there which might have occurred during the DNA replication, that may be the one of the cause behind this spontaneous mutation. Okay. So DNA replication में क्या होता है? This DNA polymerase sometimes insert some of the incorrect nucleotides, okay, in a replication strand. See, right now we are not going to give any introduction of DNA polymerase. So what is the DNA polymerase? First, as we want to talk about DNA replication error, so let's define DNA polymerase. Let's convey to the examiner that what is the DNA polymerase, what its role is. Okay. See, whenever we will go in that respect, now that we are giving introduction of those points or those questions on which there is no focus of that examiner is. Okay. अगर उस question में DNA polymerase पे कोई focus नहीं है, and if you are introducing DNA polymerase, then that will not give you any additional mark. You will just fill your space. You will just consume your time. Okay. So here it is already considered that you have been asked to write these causes of the spontaneous mutation. Okay. So this is already a kind of very high level of concept, spontaneous mutation. Okay. So examiner or the UPSC is already expecting that you know what is this DNA polymerase and you also know what are its functions are, right? So DNA, as we know in this DNA replication, DNA polymerase this adds these incorrect nucleotides, okay, in a replicative strand, because this replication was one of the function of this DNA polymerase, right? So what we are saying, during that function of adding nucleotides to the replicative strand, sometimes DNA polymerase makes mistakes. Okay, so sometimes it adds some incorrect or wrong nucleotides in that strand, right? But there is also one of the activity or characteristic is there to that DNA polymerase, that is the proofreading. We have seen that while the cell biology lectures, right? So cell biology में the translation, replication, at that time we have seen that in detail. Okay, वो lectures बहुत ही अच्छे हुए थे, okay, और भी details में हुए थे ना. That's why. See, because there in the cell cycle or the cell biology, there are a lot of diagrams are there, so I could convey most of the points really. Okay, here in this kind of points, wherever there are less number of these diagrams can be possible. ना जहाँ पर भी कम possibility होती है diagrams की, at that time there is a limitation in this online lectures. तब online lectures में थोड़ा limitation आ जाता है. Okay, so let's see. Proofreading में क्या है? This is one of the characteristic of this DNA polymerase. Now, what is that proofreading? Because of that proofreading, if earlier there are any mistake which are made by the DNA polymerase, then they get corrected. वो correct हो जाती है ultimately. Proofreading, proof फिर से वो read करता है and it just corrects any of the errors which might have occurred, right? But even after proofreading, if there are still some misincorporated nucleotides are there, then that misincorporated or misincluded, okay, sorry, misincorporated means what? जो गलत के nucleotides हैं, whatever these incorrect nucleotides are there, which were included in that DNA, if they remain in that DNA, then they will ultimately cause what? Mutation. Okay. Because that is not a normal nucleotide. Okay, if there is a single abnormal nucleotide is there in that DNA, then that is what that we will call it as what? Mutation. Okay, so this is the case. So these uncorrected errors, okay, even after the proofreading by the DNA polymerase, if those uncorrected errors persist in that DNA, then it will give the mutation. Okay. Not only that, but mispairing of that nucleotides can also occur because of the tautomerism. Now, what is the tautomerism? This tautomerism is nothing but the capacity of these bases to exist in different forms. See, tautomerism keto-enol form hai. Okay, amino in imino forms, right? Actually, we are going to see this tautomerism in next 4 or 5 slides. So there we will understand what is this keto-enol tautomerism is there, or what is the imino tautomerism. Okay. But suppose if you are a pharmacist or studying B pharmacy, so you might have studied this in your these organic chemistry. Okay, might have not, you must have seen, आपने पढ़ा ही होगा. Okay, keto-enol tautomerism. Right? So that is also the case with here also. In the case of these nucleotides also, they also just show this kind of tautomerism. See, tautomerism is basically what, यहाँ अगर एक H होता है, so that this H which is at particular location of this chemical, then it will change his location and it will get attached to this location of that another form. So ये जो change होता है, keto to enol form change होगा. Okay, when this hydrogen will shift to newer location on another molecule. Okay, suppose A है, here it is attached with the H, then there is what, this B. Okay, what happens in the next case is that this H left from this A and got attached with this B. Now this H is attached to this B at a newer location, right? So this kind of conversion is called as this keto-enol, or this not keto-enol, but this is called as what, tautomerism. Right? So because of the change of this hydrogen, now there can be a conversion of keto. Now keto what and enol, ये क्या है, functional groups है. Okay, now there will be some kind of these the chemistry will be here. Okay, यहाँ पर keto group है, C double bond O, यहाँ पर enol group है, right? And here this amino NH2 group is there. Okay, amino, and here there is imino group is there. That means what, NH double bond NH group is there. So these kind of functional groups are changed, right? So that is what I'm saying. जिसको chemistry नहीं पता उनको ये थोड़ा difficult लगेगा. So that's why I have not included these kind of detailed points in the answer. Okay, the reason is we are not chemists. We don't want to include the chemistry part in the answers, right? So that's why just जिसको समझ में आ गया वो समझ में, ठीक है? Because what is this tautomerism is just basically the conversion of what, this functional group, keto functional group to the enol functional group, amino functional group to the imino functional group. Okay, it can be exchanged, right? Interchange. अगर आपको ये समझ में नहीं आ रहा है, just forget about this. Okay, because इसका हमें ज्यादा significance नहीं होगा कभी भी chemistry का, ठीक है? Even those pharmacists or the chemists who studied this chemistry in the pharmacy, 80% or 70% of them only won't understand this tautomerism. Okay, organic chemistry हमेशा most of the students boundary पे ही पास होते हैं. Okay, और कुछ ही लोग थोड़ा ज्यादा मार्क्स लेते हैं, ठीक है? टॉप आने वाले 5-10%, 10-20% ही होते हैं, right? The other, everyone will know. Okay, the organic chemistry is a kind of tough subject, so we're not going to include that in here. Okay, just understand this tautomerism, which is just the conversion with respect to the proton present in those these molecules, will also be the result of what, mispairing. उनके वजह से भी क्या हुआ होगा, क्या हो सकता है, what may happen, mispairing. We'll see that in detail in the next slide. Okay, we'll move on to the next point. So the replication errors due to this mispairing mainly results in the point mutations. Okay, so whatever this mispairing might have occurred, ना जो कुछ भी mispairing हो रही है, okay, और होने वाली है, or whatever the mispairing can happen, it will ultimately lead to the point mutation. Okay. Now in this there is another concept, that is the replication slippage is there. Okay, ये DNA replication errors का ही part, that is what replication slippage. So in the replication slippage में हमें देखना, let's see what is this replication slippage. यहाँ पर ये occur कहाँ पर होता है? This is just occur if one of the strand of DNA template loops out and becomes the displaced. Okay, अगर ऐसा कोई strand है, okay, if such kind of looping might have occurred, then that will give this kind of replication slippage. Means whatever these nucleotides which are there on this strand, they will just slip. So that's why it is called slip from the replication. So that's why they are called as replication. Okay. So when this DNA polymerase slips or slutters during the replication, then at that time also this replication slippage occurs. Means what? Suppose this is DNA polymer. Okay, it is just performing the replication, but part of this DNA जो है ना, this part of this DNA replication may have got what, slipped. Okay, यहाँ से this DNA polymerase might have slipped from this location to this location entirely. So whatever this DNA is there, maybe the case is that DNA is not being translated, okay, or not been replicated by the DNA polymerase. Okay, so suppose this is this strand, okay, this DNA polymerase was here initially, yahan par tha DNA polymerase, so it was replicating that, but suddenly this DNA polymerase slips from this location to this location. Okay, now whatever these intermediate nucleotides were there, that were not got replicated. वो replicate हुए ही नहीं इससे, किससे? DNA polymerase. Okay, so because of that DNA polymerase slip, also what can happen? This replication slippage can happen. Okay, there will be particular segments of these nucleotides will be there which will not get replicated. Okay, ऐसा कोई ना कोई segment आएगा, right? So what can be the these reasons behind this replication slippage? The one thing is that if there is some looping out is there of that replication strand itself, okay, or this DNA polymerase itself gets slipped. Okay, now this can occur anywhere in the DNA, okay, but most of the time they are preferably occur in the area where there are repeated sequences are there. Okay, वही sequence है, like we suppose A, G, C, okay, A, G, C. If such kind of any kind of repetition is occurring in a particular area, in that area, this kind of replication slippage will occur, okay, or may occur. Okay, there is no chances. Okay. It will not entirely occur, or it may occur. Okay, ऐसा कोई chances नहीं है. There is just a probability is there. Okay. So the DNA replication, this may lead to introduction of a small insertions or deletions. Right. Yeah, as I told you, there are not lot of diagrams are there. Okay, and some of the students also said why this length of the lecture is also bigger, or this ये जो notes है यहाँ पर वो ज़्यादा क्यों है? Okay, see the reason is right now I'm preparing all of these notes. Okay, those who don't understand, who don't know about this. Okay, right now I've simultaneously made these notes, and also I take the lectures of these on these notes. Okay, simultaneously. Okay, because whatever the notes which I will make till tomorrow 5 p.m. I will take the lecture on those only, right? So I just take all the content of that notes, I put them into the PowerPoint, and I take the lecture on that. Okay. So because of that, the content of that lecture also जो PowerPoint में होते वो lengthy होते. Okay, many times I will also have to read the points also. Okay, because I have not prepared this in that respect to present as a PowerPoint. Okay, because all the content which you will see here, the same content will be there in the hard copy notes. Okay. Now I can just decrease the content of this entire this lecture. Okay, I will just make a short kind of these points of those notes also. Okay, but what may happen because of that, उससे क्या होगा? That these are the same PowerPoint PDFs are there which I share with my paid students. Okay, and I share the printed hard copy only at the end of that entire course. Okay, suppose I used only short point from that lectures to be used in the PowerPoint ना, तो उससे क्या होगा? Whatever these detailed notes are there, the detailed notes will only be delivered to the students after the completion of the entire course. Okay. So student को क्या करना पड़ेगा? What the students will be required to do? Students will be required to read all that hard copy again after the completion of the entire course. Okay. So just to avoid that, I am just taking all the contents which I prepare of that point into the PowerPoint, and I take the lecture on that. Okay, because of that एक ही possibility होता है, या फिर there is one thing which is happening. Okay, many of the students not many of the, okay, वो 3-4 students थे, they used to say that I just do this reading between the lines speaker from. Okay, see, if it is a entirely theoretical one, so then it will feel like I'm reading between the lines. Okay, so you can refer my earlier lectures, so where I have drawn the almost more than 700 diagrams. So ऐसा भी नहीं है कि reading between the lines. Okay, if the points are the same, like, or if the points are only the theoretical, I won't be able to explain that in a kind of a diagrammatic way. Or as you the students also need to get these notes immediately in that lecture only, so that's why all the lectures content is kind of bulky. Okay. So I hope right now you must be knowing that what is the main issue. क्यों कुछ लोग बोलते हैं कि reading between the lines कर, ठीक है? Now next thing, that is the deletion. Okay, see, this is the replication slippage. This is why the replication slippage is occurring, right? Now because of that, what is happening? There are again 2 points are there in this. That is the deletions and the insertions. So what is happening in the deletion? Okay, because of which again, what is happening? These DNA replication errors are this occur. Okay, deletion में क्या हो रहा है? When the loop occurs during the replication, whatever we have just talked about, कि ऐसा जब looping होगा, okay, of that DNA का, then the DNA polymerase may miss nucleotides in the loop. इस loop में जो nucleotides हैं, whatever the nucleotides are there in that loop, okay, that may be missed by the DNA polymerase. ठीक है? And whatever, see, this is also the point which I told to students that you can, whatever the diagrams which I am drawing here, now you can draw the same kind of diagram. Okay, these are called as the micro diagram or concept diagram. Now, why these are the micro diagram or the concept diagram? Now, these diagrams may not have the sufficient number of labels. इसको पूरे labels नहीं होंगे. Okay, you are drawing this diagram. Suppose this is your UPSC answer sheet. Okay, these are all the margins which have. ये जो है वो margins है. ठीक है. So maybe you are drawing this diagram here just to show this point that there can be these deletions are there. Deletions because of what? There are some nucleotides are there which can be missed by the DNA polymerase. Here you will write DNA polymerase or the nucleotides which will be missed by the DNA polymerase. डिस्कनेक्ट हो गया, फिर से रिकनेक्ट हुआ. Sir, please repeat DNA loop part. Network issue. Okay, network का issue था. Right now, I think it must be solved. Okay, अभी ये solve हुआ होगा. ठीक है? It got reconnected. Okay, I will, Rachna, I will repeat the point which you want. आपको जो point है मैं repeat कर दूँ. ठीक है? That is what we are drawing now. So you will, whenever you will include such point now, that this micro diagram or the concept diagrams. Now these diagrams will be only to convey your points. Okay, diagrammatically. Okay, it will not take a lot of time. आपको ये diagram draw करने में ज़्यादा time भी नहीं है. Maybe 30 or 10 seconds are there. Okay, now you will name them as what? Nucleotides missed by DNA polymerase. Okay, you will write only that. Within 10 seconds or this 8 to 10 seconds, you will draw that diagram and you will just move ahead. Okay. Then what will this diagram, such diagrams will do, such micro or concept diagrams will do? Such micro or concept diagram will make examiner easy to understand your answer. Okay. Now, if you are making examiner easy to understand your answer, then it will also be easier for that examiner to give you the marks. Usko marks देने में भी आसानी होगी. And if it is easy to give you more, if easy to give you a marks, so obviously your score will increase. Okay. Don't write only अगर theory है तो पूरा theory. Okay. Obviously अगर कुछ theoretical part है तो there you will only write theory. But always try to input such diagrams. Okay. So now let's see. Okay. So this is the deletions part. Okay. So after the finishing the deletion part, I will come back to this loop part, the question by the Rachna which is on the loop. Okay. So that is what is happening here. What is happening here? Deletion कैसे हो रहा है? If there is some looping part is there, suppose this is the DNA strand. Okay. Earlier it was like this, right? Okay. But for replication it will get decoiled. Okay. उसका decoiling होगा ना. So but some part of that DNA might get looped like this. ऐसा होगा उसका looping. Now, whenever DNA polymerase will try to replicate that, तब क्या होगा? These nucleotides which are in there that loop, these nucleotides will be missed by that polymerase. Okay. अभी इसका exact diagram कैसे हो सकता है? Let's see. Okay. Here suppose the sequence 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. Now suppose these are the nucleotides which are there on the DNA strand. Okay. So what may happen, whatever this DNA polymerase is there, that DNA polymerase, because of this formation of this loop, DNA polymerase will replicate after this 11. 11 के बाद क्या replicate करेगा? Or that DNA polymerase will move from this 11th location to directly 5th location. Okay. it will just miss entirely this 10 to 6 जो location था, it will just entirely miss those 10 to 6 locations means what? These are the nucleotides. Okay, so whatever the replication का, whatever the DNA strand which will be formed by that this DNA polymerase will be there na, it will be like this. Okay, 1 2 3 4 5, then it will be 11 12 13 14. This will be the strand which will be read by this DNA polymerase, not this strand. ये 6 7 8 9 10 वाला strand नहीं read होगा. That strand will not be read by that. Now why this has occurred? This has occurred because of this loop. ये loop की वजह से हुआ है. Okay, looping of that DNA, right? So because of that, whatever these nucleotides which will be missed, that will be what got deleted. ये जो loop miss हुआ है, that means what? They got deleted. This nucleotides from the 6 to 10 क्या हुआ है? Just got deleted from that strand. This is called a deletion. इसी को बोलते हैं क्या? Deletion. Now, let me know whether you have understood or not. बताओ, Rachna, whether have you understood or not? Whether have you understood loop also? Now, whether have you understood this deletion also? Deletion भी समझ में आ गया या नहीं, और loop भी समझ में आ गया या नहीं? ठीक? Yes. Okay. Now let's move on to the next part. Okay. So the insertions. So there will be the name itself will suggest that there something is going to be inserted here. Okay. So when this is going to be occur? When this DNA polymerase repeatedly introduces nucleotides. Earlier, this DNA polymerase was not performing some duties, so that's why there were certain deletions. Okay. But right now, DNA polymerase is performing the same task again and again. So it is adding the same nucleotides again and again. So because of that, there is an insertion, there is an addition of the nucleotides. Right. So this will occur when the DNA polymerase will repeatedly introduce the same nucleotides, which are actually not present. Okay. Reality में तो सिर्फ there were only like adenine, guanine, cytosine, guanine, then adenine, cytosine. Okay, but this is what this DNA polymerase is doing. After this AGC, it is not adding this GAC. It is again adding AGC. Okay, because of some mistake. Okay, because of some error. Okay. So as that DNA polymerase is adding that AGC which are not present. Okay. Now after that AGC, there is actually GAC is present. Okay. But DNA polymerase is adding what? This AGC. So AGC add kar raha hai. So AGC, the codons are being what? Inserted by this DNA polymerase. Okay. So now that is creating an unpaired loop on the newly synthesized strand. Okay. Now what is happening here? Okay. Adenine, guanine, okay, cytosine, thymine. So there will be complementary bases will be there on this strand. Okay, complementary bases होंगे इस strand पे, right? Like this, adenine, guanine, cytosine, thymine. Okay. So A के against होगा T, guanine के against होगा C, C के against होगा guanine, T के against होगा adenine. But suppose because of the DNA polymerase insertion, what has happened here? There is an additional guanine, adenine, and cytosine has been inserted. यहाँ पर क्या हुआ? This DNA polymerase have inserted another nucleotide, which are those what? GAC. Now what will happen? Now what that will create? There will be no यहाँ पर कोई complementary यहाँ पर consider करो AGC है, ठीक है? Consider it is AGC. Okay. Now whatever these nucleotides are there which are here, okay, they may not be, or most of them they will not be complemented with this. Okay, वो क्या होगा? इसके complemented नहीं होगा. So what will happen here? Whatever the part of the nucleotides which are not complementary to that nucleotides, now they will form this loop here. Okay. और यहाँ पर whatever this earlier bonding was there, na T with adenine, this cytosine with the guanine, these then again guanine with the cytosine, adenine with the thymine, that bonding will form. Only these nucleotides. Okay, now these are the nucleotides which have formed what? Unpaired loop. यहाँ पर क्या form हुआ है? Unpaired loop. Okay. Now whatever this unpaired loop which was formed by this insertion of जो DNA polymerase insert कर रहा है, what? Additional nucleotides. Now this loop will be formed, this unpaired loop will be formed because of the insertion, which is because of what? Because of this DNA polymerase repeatedly adding some unwanted nucleotides there. Okay. Now this will be again what? This is abhi insert hua. Earlier it was nothing like that. Okay. Right now what has been the case? Right now there is a loop has been inserted. So this is called as what? Insertion. इसको क्या बोला गया है? ठीक. Now whatever this insertion and deletions which we have just seen, they may cause this frame shift mutation or the amino acid additions or the deletion. ये कुछ हो सकता है. The frame shift mutation we have seen it almost 4 twice. Okay, तो आपको अभी पता चल गया होगा. What is the frame shift mutation? Entire reading frame of that nucleotide triplet codon will get changed. May get changed. Okay. Maybe an amino acid addition क्यों हो सकता है? Maybe the whatever the additional insertion of nucleotides are there ना, maybe that will code for particular amino acid. Okay. अगर additional कोई code add होगा तो obviously additional amino acid भी add होगा. Okay. So if the additional code has been added, so obviously the additional amino acid may get added. Okay. Or there will be there may be the deletions also, right? So the hypermutability of these repeat sequences which are there in the non-coding regions of the DNA are there. Okay, this is also the basis of the methods which are there in the forensic DNA analysis. Okay, इसके ऊपर ही forensic DNA analysis में इस principle का use होता है. Okay, because hypermutable है, so forensic analysis में इसका use होता है, right? So now how that analysis is there? Okay, actually I have not gone in detail उसके detail में मैं नहीं गया. Okay, but maybe we will be required to go in that detail in PCR वगैरह जो analysis है ना, at the last part of this RFLP वगैरह. There we will understand how this will be helpful. Okay, you will just add this and additional application based part. ठीक है, but अगर इसका कोई डिटेल वाला वर्जन हमें पढ़ना होगा, okay, या फिर है हमारे सिलेबस में, then we'll study that in this last part of this genetics जब हम application based study करेंगे इसका. ठीक है. Now these were these replication errors. Now whatever these errors which we have just seen, that is this tautomerism, this replication slippage, this deletion, insertion. Okay, all of them were occurring during this DNA replication. So that's why they were the DNA replication errors. Okay. Now we are going to see these base modification. Okay, or the errors which are, or the spontaneous mutations which are because of the base modification. Okay, the first one is the tautomeric shift. पहला क्या है? Tautomeric shift. Right. So as we have said, tautomers हमने अभी study किए थे. What are those? Right. So the nitrogenous bases जो है, they can exist in alternate chemical forms. Okay, which are the structural isomers of each other. Okay, and they will just differ in the proton location like this, NH2 and this. And H. Okay. So what is happening here is this amino group is converted into this amino group. Okay. So this is what is happening here in the tautomers. Tautomers में ये होता है. Okay, functional group. Hydrogen will change its position from here. Okay, यहाँ का जो NH है, it will go to another location. Okay, maybe उसका ही जो functional group है ना, उसी के किसी ग्रुप को जाके वो अटैच होगा. Okay, here this another H will attach to here, so this will be the change of that form. Okay, this amino group has been converted into this amino group. Okay, earlier it was no H here. Okay, but right now this is one H is there. So this kind of this tautomeric shifts, this tautomeric effect is there. Okay, so the example is the keto-enol form. Keto functional group is getting converted into the enol functional. So these are of what? Thymine and guanine. And amino forms का जो conversion होगा, that will be the case with the cytosine and adenine. Okay. See, we can study that with in detail chemistry also. ठीक है, chemistry के साथ भी हम study करते हैं. ठीक है, but again I prefer not to go into the much of the chemistry part. Okay, मुझे लगता है कि chemistry में ज़्यादा नहीं जाना चाहिए. ठीक है, because very less number of students will understand any part of chemistry in zoology. Okay? Because whatever the number of students, whatever the percentage or the proportion of the student which is coming to this zoology option, most of them will not have this in detail chemistry. Okay? Because chemistry will be only to where किसके लिए होगी, एमएससी जूलॉजी और फार्मा के लिए होंगे, ठीक है। और इनका प्रपोर्शन इन दिस यूपीएससी जूलॉजी इज अ काइंड ऑफ अ लेसर वन, ठीक है। एंड ऑल्दो जो स्टडी करते हैं उनको भी ये डिफिकल्ट जाता है, ठीक है। सो दैट्स व्हाई वी आर नॉट गोइंग टू इन डिटेल इन केमिस्ट्री, ओके। इवन इफ यूपीएससी इज एक्सपेक्टिंग टू राइट अस केमिस्ट्री, अगर केमिस्ट्री लिखने के भी एक्सपेक्ट है, देन ऑल्सो I will not advise you to go into that chemistry part, detail one. Okay. So that's why we have just mentioned in this theory form that this ketoenol form of tautomerism shift is there in the case of thymine and guanine. Amino forms, this tautomeric conversion is there in the case of cytosine and adenine. Okay. So whatever this shift, whatever these changes, tautomeric effect is going to be there. Okay, it's going to change the bonding structure. Okay. And that bonding structure जो change होगा because of this tautomeric structural isomers, okay, that may result in base pair change or mutation. वो ultimately क्या change कर सकता है, base pair को change कर सकता है, and it will ultimately or it may lead to what, mutation. Okay. So whatever these, see, these tautomeric mutations are kind of what, less frequently occurring mutations are there. But these can also form bonding with this non-complementary bases. Okay, even if they are kind of rarely or less frequently occurring, but whenever they will occur, they will or they can form bonds with the non-complementary bases. अगर एक बार वो form हो गए tautomers, तो non-complementary bases के साथ they can form the this bonding. Okay, now non-complementary bases means what? Both adenine, guanine, cytosine, thymine. Adenine should bind with the thymine only. Cytosine will bind with the guanine only. But because of this tautomer, what will happen? यहाँ का H अगर कहीं move हो गया, okay, then what will happen? This adenine will not always form a bond with thymine. The adenine may find bonds with the guanine also, or the cytosine may form bond with the thymine also. Such kind of changes may occur. Okay. So they will form what? They will form bonding with the non-complementary. Complementary basis कौन सा है adenine का? Which is the complementary base of adenine, thymine? Which is the complementary base of cytosine, guanine? Okay. But whenever this tautomeric effect will be there, whenever there will be tautomeric change will be there. Because of that tautomerism, what will happen? This adenine will not form bond with its conventional उसका जो complementary base है उसके साथ bond नहीं form कर रहेगा. Maybe. Okay. Maybe it will form bond with what, non-complementary base like the guanine or the cytosine. Okay, but we don't want that, so that is why it is creating the mutation. That is why it is going to create a problem. That is why it is going to create what, a point mutation. Okay, understood? Tautomeric shifts से क्या होगा? Ultimately tautomeric shift will change what, structural effect. Okay, so tautomeric effect or the structural isomers which are going to be formed from by that tautomerism will ultimately change the base pair bonding. Okay, now when the base pair bonding will get affected, this complementary bonding जो था base pair का, that will change. So those same bases will form bonds with the non-complementary bases, and if they are forming the bond with the non-complementary bases, so obviously it will create a kind of what, the mutation. Okay, see, if there is adenine here, guanine here, cytosine here, okay, thymine here, generally what should be the case? Here it should be thymine, here it should be the cytosine, here it should be the guanine, here it should be the adenine. Okay, but because of this tautomerism, यहाँ पर suppose वो tautomerism effect express हुआ, now there is just exchange of this hydrogen is there at this thymine or this cytosine. Now because of that, what may happen? Now because of that, this thymine may form bond with the guanine. The cytosine may form bond with this another adenine. ऐसा कुछ होगा. ठीक है. Now that is not expected for us. That is what we don't want. Okay, we always want this thymine to form bond with the adenine. Okay, to have a healthy DNA, to have a correct DNA. Okay, we always want this cytosine to form a bond with the guanine. Okay, but if this is not happening, then obviously it's going to create some problem. Now that problem is what? That problem is nothing but the mutation. Okay. So this is the first part, and the tautomeric shift. Okay. The second part of this base modification में कैसे हो सकते हैं? How? What are the other ways through which these bases can modify? Depurination or the deamination. Okay. The name itself will suggest. Okay. Depurination means what? Loss of one of the nitrogenous base or the purine. अगर वो loss ही हो गया in that DNA, then that may give this depurination. So whatever these bases are there, they may get lost if when they get lost, when the glycosidic जो bond है, that bond gets break. वो bond जब break होगा ना, तब ये होगा. See, this is this glycosidic bond. Okay. Suppose this bond get broke because of some reason. अगर ये bond break हो गया, gets break because of some reason, then whatever these problems or whatever these mutations are going to occur, these are called as what? उसको क्या कहते हैं? These are called as depurination. Because here what is happening? Depurin, ये जो purine link है, whatever this purine ring is there ना, this is getting discarded. So that's why what is happening here? It is depurination. Okay. Depurination which is occurring here. Okay. And as we have said, it is occurring because of what? Because of the breakage of this glycosidic bond. जो glycosidic bond है किसमें से है? Which is present in between what? In between this deoxyribose and purine. इन दोनों के बीच में जो glycosidic bond है, whatever the glycosidic bond which is present in between this deoxyribose and purine, if that gets break, then the purine is getting lost. So that is giving what? Depurination of that strand. Right. Now that is going to create what? In DNA, what it will create? If the purine is getting lost, then ultimately that site will be called as what? A purinic site. A purinic site. That is AP site. See here, this whatever this marker is there, it will not perform that smoothly. Okay, it will perform smoothly in the pen. Okay, because यहाँ पर PowerPoint के यहाँ पर मैं annotate करता हूँ, so that's why it does not work that perfectly. ठीक है, तो you may have some problem in reading these annotations. ठीक है, but you must have understood what I wanted to tell you. Okay, if that glycosidic bond gets break because of some reason, then that purine will get lost. If the purine is getting lost from that DNA, then it is creating a purinic site. Now that apurinic sites will obviously be required to repair. Okay. The cellular machineries will repair that apurinic site. They will add again the purine. Okay. But imagine because of some reason, because there will be millions or trillions of such instances maybe there in the DNA. Okay. So at that time, if those apurinic sites are not repaired, अगर वो repair नहीं हुए, okay, then there will be no base at that position. उस position पे क्या होगा? कोई भी base नहीं होगा, कोई भी nucleotide नहीं होगा. Okay, which is going to be acting as that DNA strand, right? So as there will be no base will be there at that position, so this DNA polymerase will come, and while proofreading or while checking everything, whether the everything is okay or not, at that time this DNA polymerase will realize that there is one this base is missing at there. So that DNA polymerase may add any nucleotide there. Okay. So obviously he will have these chances. Okay, if the purine is getting lost from that particular ribose. Okay, see, आपको if you have gone through our this cell biology or biochemistry lecture, so you should must understand this. आपको इतना तो पता होगा that ribose sugar को ही, okay, or to the ribose sugar base all the purines pyrimidines rings are attached, right? So then only you are getting adenine guanine cytosine thymine. तभी आपको मिल रही है adenine guanine cytosine thymine, right? But when you are removing a purine from a particular ribose sugar, okay, or sugar base, okay, or sugar backbone, and when this DNA polymerase is about to correct this ribose, at that time, how he is going to understand, or how he is going to know, or how he is going to know that whether previously to that ribose, whether the purine was there or pyrimidine was there, whether it was adenine was there or whether it was guanine was there, which was removed from that ribose sugar, whether it was cytosine was there or thymine was there. Okay. How that this DNA polymerase is going to understand that? No, it will not. So it can add any of the nucleotide to that. Okay, वहाँ पर वो कुछ भी add कर सकता है. Right? So if you are just this removing a particular purine, he may add pyrimidine or he may add some another purine. Adenine guanine के अलावा कुछ adenine, if the adenine is removed, maybe he will add some another purine. Guanine add कर सकता है. ठीक है. So this is what the case. So ultimately क्या होता है? Ultimately this cytosine may get converted into the uracil, and this adenine may get converted into the hypoxanthine. Okay, इसमें क्या होता है? While this correction, ultimately this kind of changes are going to occur in that DNA. Cytosine है, it is getting converted into the uracil. Adenine है, it gets converted into the hypoxanthine, right? So this may occur spontaneously. Okay, and this will ultimately give what? Alter the base pairing specificity. Ultimately आपको जो कुछ भी base specific थे हमारे, okay, ultimately initially we wanted adenine only, but right now because of these difficulties which was faced by the DNA polymerase, you are getting what? This different kind of bases at that location. So this will create some problem. Okay, so whatever this conversion which will occur, okay, whatever this conversion will occur, उससे क्या होगा? The adenine original guanine cytosine से pair कर रहा था, but right now it will convert it into this adenine uracil. पूरे base ही change हो जाएंगे. Okay, because this DNA polymerase is not able to understand which purine or pyrimidine has been removed. Okay, so guanine और cytosine का जो pair था ultimately किस में convert होगा? Adenine और uracil में होगा. ठीक है. So because of this, ultimately adenine and T का pair भी ultimately किस में convert हो सकता है? Guanine और cytosine में convert हो सकता है. Right? So all of this interconversion जो हो रहे different kind of usual pair के in some unwanted pairs, okay, that is going to give us what? That is ultimately result in a kind of what? These mutation. Okay. Now whatever this theory is there, you will understand by a particular this diagram. Okay, यहाँ से diagrams पे हम कुछ understand करते हैं. Let's see. So this is part of the this depurination, but we are going to understand this part which we have studied till now with the diagram. Okay, this is the diagram which is of the tautomerism. Okay, तो tautomerism की वजह से क्या होता है? Let's see. Okay, we have seen some part of theory. ठीक है. See, this is what is happening in a non-tautomeric state. अगर tautomerism नहीं हुआ, if there is no tautomeric effect is there, then there will be no mutation. Okay, why there is no mutation? See, this is the DNA strand. Okay, this got unwinded. Okay, so ultimately it will perform this semi-conservative replication hoga. Okay, so whatever this adenine, thymine, guanine, cytosine is there, okay, you can see this. This is adenine, thymine, guanine, cytosine is there. Right? So these complementary bases will be added. Complementary bases added in this newly synthesized strand. TA. But suppose this tautomerism which we have just studied, it has occurred at this position. यहाँ पर tautomerase shift हो गया. Okay, to form what? To which form? Immunoform. ठीक है. Now immunoform में जो conversion हुआ है of that adenine, now that immunoform of that adenine can form bond with this cytosine. Okay. Earlier the adenine was able to form bond with the thymine only. But because of this conversion, because of this tautomeric conversion, now that adenine is able to form bond with the cytosine. So cytosine may get incorporated here. So यहाँ पर thymine की जगह क्या insert होगा? Cytosine. So what might get inserted here? Cytosine in place of what? Thymine. Right? So now this tautomeric shift back to the amino form. Okay. So now whenever this tautomeric form जो है, which it will get again converted into the normal form, that is the adenine. ठीक है. But right now what is the case? तो अभी क्या होगा? There are two strands of DNA which you are having, this strand and this strand. Now here whatever the cytosine which have been incorporated, now ये cytosine क्यों incorporated हुआ? Why this cytosine has been incorporated into this strand? This cytosine has been incorporated into this new strand because of this tautomeric form of this adenine. Okay, adenine के tautomeric form की वजह से ये cytosine incorporate हुआ है, right? But now that tautomeric form is no longer there of that adenine. Okay, so this TACG is as it is. Now during this replication, this complementary nucleotides will be added into this newer strand. Okay, DNA का जब replication होगा तब ये complementary nucleotides add हो जाएंगे here. Okay, now the same case here also, whatever this strand we have, that is the adenine, cytosine, guanine, cytosine, adenine, cytosine, guanine, cytosine. Okay. On the opposite strand, the complementary bases are going to get added. Okay. So the adenine से complementary कौन है? Thymine. So cytosine से complementary कौन है? Guanine. Okay. So guanine से complementary cytosine and cytosine से complementary is guanine. Right. So here, whatever this newer strand you are getting, na, this is the mutated strand. ये कौन सा strand है? Mutated strand है. Why this is mutated strand? Because we are having this guanine in this strand. इस strand में हमें क्या है? Guanine. Okay. We were not expecting that guanine in this strand. What we were expecting or what should be there? It should be always the adenine should be present. Okay. यहाँ पर adenine ही होना चाहिए था in this strand. Okay. But this is not the case. ये adenine नहीं है. Why? Because ये adenine got converted into the tautomeric form. When this adenine gets converted into the tautomeric form, because of that problem here, thymine, instead of thymine, what has been added? Cytosine. Now, when the cytosine has been added at this location, what has been added? In complement to that cytosine, what has been added? Guanine has been added into this newly synthesized DNA strand. Okay. So this is what is the effect of this tautomeric shift. ये है, whatever this error is there ना, whatever this guanine which is incorporated ना, this is the error in the DNA replication, which is because of what? Because of this tautomeric effect. Okay. तो tautomerism में जब हमने initial study किया था, उसके लिए ये diagram आपको study करना है. ठीक है. जो depurination और deamination का एक बार फिर से देखते हैं. Right. So what is happening in the depurination? So in the depurination, the glycosidic bond is getting broke. Okay. यहाँ पर जो glycosidic bond है, ये break हो रहा है. This purine is getting lost. When that purine gets lost, during this proofreading, or the DNA polymerase will start to will try to add this nucleotide or this purine or pyrimidine which it just got lost. Okay, उस location से जो purine और pyrimidine चला गया है, the DNA polymerase will try to add this. Okay. But the thing is that the DNA polymerase will not know which purine was removed, so it will add some different purine. So because of, if it is adding some different purine, so obviously at least in some instances it will create what? Different purines or different adenine की जगह thymine add करेगा, thymine की जगह guanine add करेगा, right? So because of that there will be some mutations will be there. Okay, so this is the depurination or deamination का this issue is there, right? Next is the third case is the oxidative damage. Okay, now what is the oxidative damage is? The reactive oxygen species जो है, okay, which are going to be generated. Oxidative damage means what? The damage which is because of the oxidation. Okay, so because of that oxidation, these sulfoxides, the hydroxyl radicals, okay, these hydrogen peroxide will get generated or might get generated. Now these are very harmful or highly reactive, so they will create some kind of chemical modification. ये जो highly reactive moieties है ना, superoxide, hydroxyl radicals, they will create a kind of what? These different type of chemical modifications in the DNA. Okay, and they will include what? The bases also. The bases को भी affect करेगा ये oxidative damage, and if it is affecting the bases, so ultimately it is creating a what? Mutation. Okay, अगर वो purine pyrimidine bases को भी affect करेगा, if these nucleotide, if these free radicals are affecting the purines or pyrimidines, then it is going to create what? Some mutation. Okay, adenine को अगर delete करना है, then also there is going to be possibility of mutation is there. Okay, transposons also can create certain kind of replication errors. Okay, so these can cause mutation in the eukaryotes and prokaryotes. तो ये जो transposons है, वो भी mutations कर सकते हैं eukaryotes और prokaryotes. ठीक है, but here the major important these points will be these only two only. ठीक है, that is the depurination, deamination, or this tautomeric shift. Okay, in the base modification. Okay. So at that point we are stopping with the spontaneous mutation. Okay, right now you are having almost आपके UPSC का answer sheet होगा ना, you will have almost 3 pages of content with you, which is there only for spontaneous mutation. Okay, but you will never be required to write for 3 pages on spontaneous mutation. Okay, so whatever the points which you have not digested well from that spontaneous mutation, you can eliminate those, or whatever the simplest or easy to write points are there in that notes, you can write in this answer. Okay, so जितना भी 1 पेज या फिर 1.5 पेज आपको समझ में आए spontaneous mutation का, वो आप ड्रॉ आउट कर सकते हो, और फिर उतना ही अंडरलाइन कर सकते हो आपकी नोट्स में, whenever you will get the hard copy notes of that. Okay, now we are going to start with the induced mutation. Okay, there will be 2 points will be remaining from this induced mutation, which will complete in the tomorrow's lecture. Okay, but let's start with the induced mutation. Okay, the introductory part of this induced mutation we have already seen. Okay, last lecture में हम induced mutations क्या है वो हमने already complete किया है. ठीक है, so the natural components like the maybe toxins, cosmic rays, ultraviolet rays, or some of the industrial rays like the X-rays, okay, or some chemicals can create this kind of induced mutations. Okay, so out of that we are going to study first, which is the base analog. So let's see what are these induced mutations are there, which are the base analog. Okay, mutagenic chemicals जो है, okay, they can substitute for the purines and pyrimids. There are certain chemicals are there which are actually substituting the purines and pyrimids. Okay, ये जो adenine, guanine, cytosine, thymine, ये जो purines और pyrimids है, there will be certain chemicals will be there which can act as a substitute for these. Okay. These are the building blocks of all of us. Okay, हम जिससे बने हुए हैं, whatever we are made from ना, at the end ये adenine, guanine, cytosine, thymine. Okay, at the end means what? At the minute level यही तो है adenine, guanine, cytosine, thymine. Okay, from there only all these things are this being made. Okay, so there are certain chemicals like the 5-bromouracil. Okay, now it acts as a what? Thymine analog. ये जो thymine को 5-bromouracil कभी-कभी क्या करता है? Replace करता है. The cellular mechanism is not able to understand whether it is thymine or whether it is 5-bromouracil. Okay, the cellular mechanism will consider this 5-bromouracil as one of the component of the thymine, okay, or as one of the nucleotide, that is what? Thymine. Okay, now whenever that will happen, okay, जब भी ऐसा होगा, whenever the cell will utilize this 5-bromouracil as a replacement for the thymine, obviously there will be certain problems will be there. Now that problems will be what? That problems will be nothing but what? Mutations. वो क्या होगी? Mutations. Right. So whenever this 5-bromouracil is incorporated into the DNA in place of thymine, okay, it creates what? A tautomeric shift to the enol form occurs. Now the problems will be there now. So this is the problem. Problem क्या है? That 5-bromouracil will result in what? Tautomeric shift to the enol form. Okay. Now that 5-bromouracil within the DNA will increase what? Sensitivity of the molecule to ultraviolet. Okay. वो जो entire DNA का molecule होगा उसको क्या करेगा? That 5-bromouracil will increase the sensitivity of that to the ultraviolet rays. So even if minute amount of ultraviolet rays are also there, then also that DNA will get break. Then also that protein will get lost. And ultimately, it is resulting in what? A kind of deadly mutation, okay? Deadly problems. Right? So this is the base analogs, okay, which are creating the induced mutation. Okay, this is what? This is the first example, that is the 5-bromouracil. Okay, there was another example was there in that the same reference book, but I haven't used that. Okay, because we are required to write. We will be required to write only one diagram, one question example of this base analog. Okay, so दो example मैंने use ही नहीं. Okay, because as this genetics is already going to be a kind of an hectic chapter for most of the students, so already मैंने इससे पहले ही बहुत बड़ा दिया है आपको, तो whenever it is possible we will try to simplify it. Okay, alkylating agent, second type of this agent, okay, which are going to get what? First one was the these base analog. Okay. Now these alkylating agents are also going to give us the induced mutation. Now which are these? Now these are the mustard gas. Okay. ये क्या करते हैं? They donate the CH3 or this ethene group, okay, to amino or the keto groups in the nucleotide. ये क्या करते हैं? Mustard gases क्या करते हैं? ये जो amino और keto group है ना, this in these nucleotides, okay, to those groups they donate this methyl or ethyl group. Now because of that, ethyl methane sulfonate alkylates the keto groups in the number 6 position of the guanine. ये जो guanine है ना, उसके 6 नंबर के पोजीशन को क्या करता है? ये this ethyl methane sulfonate, it adds a keto group to the 6th position guanine के, ठीक है, and in the number 4 position of the thymine. क्या क्या ऐड करता है? अल्काइलेट्स मींस व्हाट? इट एड्स द अल्काइल ग्रुप, इट मे बी द मिथाइल और इथाइल, where this ethyl methyl sulfonate add this alkyl group at 6 guanine के 6th पोजीशन पे और थामाइन के 4th पोजीशन पे. ओके, 4th पोजीशन मींस व्हाट? these are the numbers at the ring, उनके जो रिंग्स है उसके रिंग को जो नंबर्स है ना उसको ये बोला जाता है 4th position or the 6th carbon, 4th carbon. Okay, at that location they will add this alkyl group. Okay, now in this base pairing affinities are, now इसमें क्या होगा? Obviously if there is another group is there, agar see cytosine this usually be pairing with this guanine. Okay, but if you are adding an alkyl group to the 6th position of this guanine, so alkyl guanine is obviously different from only guanine. Methyl guanine ho, it is going to be different from only methyl, this guanine. Okay, ethyl guanine is going to be kind of different from the guanine. Okay, chemically it may or may not, most of the time it will kind of chemically behave separately. Okay? Most of the time, why I'm talking about most of the time, because see, chemistry mein during pharmacy you might have studied this. Okay, even if you change a single functional group, okay, even if you added suppose a particular ring hai, okay, if you are, so this is this benzene ring is there, right? यहाँ पर ये benzene ring है. Okay, this is the benzene, and suppose you have added 6 fluoro, this chlorine group here. Okay, so this is the 6 chlorobenzene is there. The chemical properties of the 6 chlorobenzene will be entirely different from this benzene. Okay, so that is why here the same case. Okay, if the alkyl group is there at the 6th position of this guanine, then this 6th alkyl guanine will be different, will behave differently from the guanine. Okay, so it will, there will be some problem while pairing with the complementary base. Okay, which is the complementary base? That is the cytosine. With what? Guanine. But it is not the complementary base with the 6 alkyl guanine. Okay, so that's why there will be certain base pairing affinity problem will be there. Now that will create the problem. Now that problem will ultimately means what? Ultimately means the mutation. Okay, so the guanine is going to act as an analog of the adenine and pairs with the thymine. Okay. So यहाँ पर क्या हो रहा है? Actually the guanine is not pairing with the cytosine. The guanine is actually pairing with the thymine. This is the problem. Now this, we don't want this. We don't want the guanine to pair with the thymine. Okay, this guanine is pairing with this thymine. We don't want this. ये हमें नहीं चाहिए. We want adenine to pair with the thymine and guanine to pair with the cytosine. But this is not occurring here in this. Okay, because of what? Because of this alkylating agent, which is what? Mustard gas. That is what? Ethyl methane sulfonate, EMS. What it is doing? It is adding alkyl group at 6th position of the guanine. उसकी वजह से क्या हुआ? This 6 alkyl guanine is not forming bond with the cytosine. वो बोल रहा है कि अभी cytosine से मुझे bond नहीं form करना है. I will form bond with the thymine. But that is not what we want. That is going to create a lot of problems in the base pairing of that DNA. Okay, so that will give us lot of troubles. Means what? Ultimately, troubles in the DNA means what? Mutation. Ultimately, क्या बोलेंगे हम? Mutations बोलेंगे. So this is the alkylating agents, and this is type of, this is the effect of induced mutation. क्यों होगा? Because of the mustard gas. First we have seen the base analogs. This is because of what? Fibromyalgia. Alkylating agents, EMS. Okay. Third one and the last one is what? The acridine dyes. Okay. There are again 2 more points are there in this induced mutation, which we will cover in the next lecture. But let's complete this acridine dyes. Okay. So it causes the frame shift mutations. Acridine dyes. Okay, example is the proflavin. Okay, so what is the case with the acridine dye is that इसके जो same, they have the same dimensions. Okay, इनके जो structural dimensions है same as the nitrogenous bases. Okay, and they intercalate between the purines and perimines of the DNA. इसकी वजह से वो क्या होता है? As they are similar to the nitrogenous bases, they are going to intercalate between the purines and perimines. Okay. तो DNA में intercalate हो जाएंगे ये acridine dyes. Okay. Now that intercalation in that DNA will introduce what? Contortions in the DNA. Okay. वो जो intercalate होंगे ना, that will create a, suppose here this acridine dye got incorporated. So that will create a kind of a contortion in that DNA fields. Okay. So that kind of contortion or problems will create what deletions and insertion in that entire DNA. Or deletions or insertions अगर हो रही है because of that acridine dye, then ultimately it will cause what frame shift mutation. So ultimately it will result in a what frame shift mutation. Okay. See, if you have little less time to write this thing ना, you can also write this in the form of what this chart. Okay. ऐसे चार्ट के फॉर्म में लिख सकते हो, इससे ये होता है. ओके, फ्लो चार्ट के फॉर्म में लिख सकते हो. ओके, इससे ये होगा. ओके, acridine dyes. Okay, frame shift mutation. Okay, example proofreading. It will what get added into the DNA. Okay, it intercalates DNA. Next point, what it will just cause this insertion or deletion. Ultimately, it will cause what frame shift mutation. Okay, so this is the third example, right? So there are some models are there which are suggest what these whatever these frame shift mutations are there. Na? Okay, they are generated at the gaps in the DNA during this replication, repair, or recombination. Whatever the processes are there na, in this cell cycle. In that processes during in that DNA, these kind of frame shift mutations are produced in the gaps in that DNA. Okay, so during such events, there are chances of this slippage and improper base pairing. So because of इस ये जो events है replication, repair, recombination, इनमें ही chances होते हैं किसके slippage के and ultimately what imperfect base pairing के. ठीक है. So because of that, whatever this kind of this intercalation which might occur ना, ये जो intercalation जो हो सकता है because of this kind of the acridine dyes. Okay, so that may lead to improper base pair region. Okay. So base pairing जो improper हो रही है, that may extend this slippage structure. So entirely जो slipping हो रही है of this nucleotides की, that will remain for longer time in that DNA. Okay, and if it is remaining there, then that is ultimately going to increase the chances of what the faulty DNA to be be present in there. Okay, to be present in that DNA as it is. Okay, अगर वो intercalation हो रही है, that intercalation will, if that intercalation is resulting in keeping that defect as it is, अगर वो defect वैसे ही वैसे रह रहा है, then ultimately जो mispairing होगा, that will just get carried out into the next DNA. Okay, so this next DNA which is going to be formed, obviously that will be a kind of what a different kind of DNA will be there. A kind of different DNA means what? A kind of mutated DNA. Okay, so this is what is going to happen because of this acridine dyes. Okay, in short, what these acridine dyes will do, they will just intercalate in between the purines and paramides of the DNA. Okay, whenever they get intercalated, then obviously they will create a kind of change in the base pairing. Okay, that change in the base pairing will ultimately result in what different kind of nucleotides or different kind of this DNA nucleotide sequence. Okay, that will ultimately give us what frame shift mutations. Okay, so these are the three types of the mutations are there which we are going to study under the induced mutation. Okay, so tomorrow there will be one or two more sub points which we will study under the induced mutation, and then we will just complete these mutations to all apart. Okay, so if we have any, yes, there are two queries are there. How long this class will be? Okay, it is just got ended. Okay, continue remaining part with recording. There is assembly bell. Assembly bell. Continue remaining part with recording. There is assembly bell. क्या बोल रही है रचना? ठीक है. Okay, so this is where we are stopping here. Okay, if you have any query, you can ask. अगर कुछ query है तो आप पूछ सकते हैं. Otherwise, we are going to meet tomorrow. Okay. So as there are no queries, we are going to meet in next class. Till then, have a great day. Bye bye. Good night.